Are you ready for the 6 months check-in? Because I sure am. I'm actually pretty excited to share my thoughts on this Kiri cleaver with you guys. So in today's video, we're going to answer the big question. Is the DaoVua Kiri cleaver the Serbian chef knife slayer? Now, quick disclaimer, I purchased this knife 100% with my own money. I don't have any kind of affiliations with neither Chef Knives to Go nor DaoVua. Really quickly, I want to let you guys know that Between Two Forks merch is now available, so if you guys want to show a little extra love and help support the channel, that'll be greatly appreciated, but no pressure whatsoever. I will link everything in the descriptions below. Now let's get started. Return! Now I want to preface this by saying that I did put a new edge on this knife after the initial video. As previously mentioned, Chef Knives to Go call these knives project knives, and it can benefit from a sharpening straight out of the box. What I personally did is, after the initial video, I sharpened this knife with a 1000 grit Kingstone, and it passed the tomato test with no issue whatsoever. But even then, I felt that the edge was not as sharp as I wanted. So I tried it on a DMT diamond plate. It is a fine and extra fine. So I sharpened it on the fine side and then deburred it on the extra fine side. And it created an edge that I would consider a little bit more aggressive. So I'm really happy with this edge that I have on here. So for the past 6 months, it's been fairly typical and normal maintenance with a honing rod and a strop. Now let's go ahead and grab a few things to see how this knife performs after a fresh hone after 6 months. Okay, so I think it is only fair for us to start this off with a tomato cut test because the DaoVua did not pass the tomato test fresh out of the box. Now let's go ahead and test this out with a brand new edge on it after 6 months. Cut this guy in half, like normally. All right. Moment of truth. As you guys can see, passed the tomato cut test with no issue whatsoever. So the next test we're going to do, we're going to try the grape test. Now, for those of you guys who are professional chefs that are watching, that you guys work professionally on the line, you guys do have to take into consideration that this is 6 months of regular usage with rotation with a couple different knives at a home cooking setting. Okay, so the edge retention for this will be a little different when you take into consideration how much you guys will be using it on the line instead of a home setting. Okay, here we go. You guys see this? Super thin slices, guys. Alright, as you guys can see, the knife performs flawlessly. I mean, look how sharp it is after just a fresh hone, after 6 months of use. This is paper thin. Like, you can see my finger underneath it. See? Okay, so the next thing we're going to cut is a carrot. Now, for the past 6 months, I gotta tell you, I have been reaching for this knife very consistently. So amongst all the other knives that I'm rotating, I have been reaching for this DaoVua Kiri Cleaver and then my Santoku extremely often because I can pretty much get away with doing everything that I need with these two knives. The Kiri Cleaver, one of the things that I really like about it is, of course, I love a cleaver, and then on top of that, it is very lightweight and it is also very comfortable in the hands to use. So even when I'm prepping a larger meal or a longer meal prep, I don't find myself, getting a little tired or my hands getting fatigued after holding a heavier cleaver like I would with, my big Fuki or the Serbian chef knife, which is much heavier than the DaoVua Kiri Cleaver. Now, the edge retention is as you would expect from a spring steel knife. It is very comparable to, let's say, the 1095, like the Serbian chef knife is made out of. And I say it has good edge retention, but not excellent edge retention, because excellent edge retention will be something more of like a high-tech powdered steel, which would be a very unfair comparison to a spring steel knife. はい。 All right, now to answer the big question for you guys. Is the DaoVua Kiri Cleaver the Serbian chef knife slayer? It's a yes and a no. It's a two-part answer, and I'll explain why. So the first thing we want to talk about is edge retention. DaoVua Kiri Cleaver is made with a spring steel, and the 𝐒𝐔𝐏 Serbian chef knife is made out of 1095. I'm not sure about the other Serbian chef knives, especially the original Amazon one. The only one that I'm reviewing is this 𝐒𝐔𝐏 one, or the experience that I've had is this 𝐒𝐔𝐏 one, so I'm just basing it off of this copy right here. So 1095 steel, spring steel. Their edge retention is extremely comparable. So I would say both of these knives, edge retention is a draw. So it's a tie between the two knives. Now the next thing we want to talk about is fit and finish, which I've already talked about in the initial video. The DaoVua Kiri Cleaver is the clear winner here between the two knives, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. So like I said, DaoVua Kiri Cleaver definitely has a much nicer fit and finish in comparison to the Serbian chef knife by 𝐒𝐔𝐏. The last thing I want to touch on is actually the thickness of the blade. When I was practicing how to do horizontal cuts on an onion, because one of our viewers / subscriber commented saying, hey, here's a tip on doing horizontal cuts. Stop sawing through it, use the tip of your blade, and just kind of flick through it. And it looks a lot better and is a much more efficient way to do it. So I was sitting there practicing how to do my horizontal cuts, flicking different knives through the onions horizontally. And when I was using the DaoVua Kiri Cleaver, I noticed that it didn't go through very smoothly. Now let's take a closer look at the tip of the DaoVua Kiri Cleaver so you know what I'm talking about. As you can see here, the thickness from the spine all the way down to the bevel is the same thickness. There's little to no tapering from the spine to the bevel. It does not start tapering until the bevel going down to the edge. So what this results in is that there's a lot more thickness and bulk behind the edge at the tip of the knife, so it doesn't create a very thin and agile tip. Whereas as you can see here on the Serbian chef knife, you can see that it gradually tapers from the spine of the knife all the way down to the tip of the knife. And the result of this is that the tip of the Serbian chef knife is a little bit more agile in comparison to the DaoVua Kiri Cleaver. Right, to summarize all of this for you guys, is the DaoVua Kiri Cleaver the Serbian chef knife slayer? For me personally, it's a yes. And here's the reason why. I can sharpen the edge of a knife, and I can also easily taper this tip down a little bit to make it more agile. So at the end of the day, after I do both of those things, if the tip even bothers you, right? Putting an edge on a knife, this took me like 10 minutes. So at the end of the day, I have a sharp edge, an agile tip, just like the Serbian chef knife, and good fit and finish. Whereas on the Serbian chef knife, yes, it is sharper straight out of the box, and also it does have a thinner edge and more agile tip, but the fit and finish problem will be really, really difficult to fix. There are gaps in the handle scales, like I said before, a warped tang, a warped blade, and those are things that you can possibly fix, but it is a lot more labor intensive, and there's still a chance that you can't get a warp out of a blade. So that's the reason why, for me personally, I think the DaoVua Kiri Cleaver is the Serbian chef knife slayer. Now, for those of you guys who don't like to put in a little bit of elbow grease, go ahead and go with whichever knife you want. You can go ahead and go with the Serbian chef knife because it is sharper out of the box. But do keep in mind, all knives are eventually going to get dull. There's not a single knife in this world that will stay sharp forever. So eventually, you will have to get the knife sharpened. So keep that in mind when you make your decision. But I will leave that decision up to you guys when you guys make the choice for yourself. And that wraps up the video for the week. I hope you guys like this 6 months check-in. And if you guys do like it, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. Help me support all of this madness. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.